Picture this. After months of hard work throughout an entire season, all the blood, sweat and tears comes down to one single moment. You have the opportunity to seal victory if you just keep your cool. All you need to do is carry out the movement you've practiced hundreds of times before. All you need to do is let your muscle memory take over. But suddenly, your body tenses up as your mind wanders away from the task at hand and onto thoughts about how big this moment is. You become distracted by the sound of the crowd and the fact that all eyes are on you. Your brain now locks focus on 4 simple words. What if I miss? You realise the clock is ticking and so you rush through the motions. You miss. You lose. You overthought. Overthinking can be an athlete's worst enemy. It always seems to pop up during those times that we need complete mental clarity and calm. But there are some athletes who seem to have permanently defeated this enemy. They play with monk-like focus, their heads are empty of distractions, and their brain follows the automatic sequence of actions needed to seize the big moments. So how can you be like them? Well, let's find out. So what is overthinking and why does it happen? Overthinking is a cognitive process characterized by excessive, repetitive, and often unproductive rumination on thoughts, events, or decisions. Hold up a sec, that definition is even making me overthink. If we simplify it, overthinking is basically any time that we get consumed by our thoughts. And typically these thoughts tend to be overwhelmingly negative, where they cause us to dwell on various possible outcomes. And unfortunately, most of these outcomes tend to be the worst ones. Things like missing that last minute penalty, jump shot, or putt. Obviously, this is bad for performance because overthinking is a distraction from the task at hand and usually ends up leading to increased stress and anxiety, things you know cause you to make mistakes. Why overthinking happens is a bit more complicated. It really depends on you as an individual. Typically, we all do it, but just for different reasons. But there are a few common ones. Firstly, perfectionism and the fear of failure. Athletes who strive for perfection, fear making mistakes, may find themselves trapped in overthinking. The fear of not meeting their own or others' expectations can lead to overanalysis and self-criticism, inhibiting your ability to act intuitively. Secondly, a general lack of confidence. If you're facing a period of low self-confidence or self-doubt, you're a lot more prone to overthinking. Athletes who doubt their abilities may constantly question themselves and their actions, and this is ultimately going to interrupt your natural flow. Think of a striker who goes on a goal drought. His confidence drops a little every game he doesn't score, and the longer this goes on, the more he questions his ability. And if he does this, he's not going to have the confidence to make certain runs or be more physical with defenders. It becomes a really difficult spiral to get out of. And the third reason is something called anticipatory anxiety. Basically what this means is that overthinking can be caused by anxiety that builds up in anticipation of certain events or outcomes. Athletes may become preoccupied with what could go wrong if they fail or miss, particularly when thinking about this in relation to big goals. For example, it's super common for a really good athlete to start playing poorly if they know a scout is watching them, or they seize up when on the cusp of victory. This was seen with Jean van der Velde during the 1999 Open when he was leading by 3 strokes going into the final hole, and he needed just a double bogey to claim the title. But a comedy of errors then happened where he hit the grandstand, then hit the ball into the water, then into the bunker, before then making a triple bogey to join 2 other players in a playoff that he ultimately lost. Overthinking in these cases happens because we get so close to an ultimate goal and we begin to start worrying about that future outcome, when instead what we need to do is focus 100% of our attention just on the present moment. So if these are some of the most common reasons for overthinking, how do you overcome them? Well, let's run through 3 very simple practical tips that you can implement in your game. So a great first tip is that you need to practice under pressure. Most athletes find that the skill they've been practicing all week in training they can nail almost every time. But the second a touch of pressure is added on game day or match day, that's when they start doubting themselves or let their minds run wild. And that's because most athletes will only practice in a 100% safe environment. But the truth is, during the heat of the competition, you're not safe. There's so many added pressures that you need to be able to block out so that your performance doesn't waver. So think of some ways that you can add some extra pressure to your practice. And this requires a bit of experimentation and creativity. You'll probably come up with some ideas that are a bit stupid at first, but over time you refine them into the perfect strategies that are going to give you the edge. If you watch the Arsenal All or Nothing series, you may recall Mikel Arteta brought out speakers to play You'll Never Walk Alone, whilst his team were training for their upcoming visit to Anfield to play Liverpool. And the goal of this was to get them accustomed to that hostile and intimidating environment so that it didn't faze them on the day. Now, they did end up going on to lose that game 4-0, but the point is Arteta was starting the habit of thinking outside the box, of coming up with various ways that would help his players get accustomed to pressure. A more successful example comes from Adam Peaty, a 3-time Olympic gold and 8-time world champion swimmer. In preparation for competitions, he would do his practice runs as though it was the world or Olympic final. So he'd walk out to the pool to take his lane whilst playing a soundtrack of an announcer introducing all the top swimmers in the world, just like you would have on race day. And this helped him become so familiar with that high pressure and quite nerve-wracking experience of taking his mark during the biggest races of his life. The point in these cases is to try to mirror the in-game conditions and get used to the added pressure that comes with them. The more you practice under pressure, the more desensitized to it you become. Doing this means it becomes normal to play with distractions or things that just make your life a little bit more difficult. Next up, you want to eliminate deceptive self-talk. Now, what I mean by this is that a lot of athletes think they can stop their overthinking by using certain mantras or sayings they think will be helpful, but actually they end up being more harmful. For example, a lot of athletes will say to themselves, don't miss or don't screw up. And the problem is, in the heat of the moment during high pressure moments, our brain likes to take shortcuts and will always look for and fix upon the most salient information. So when you say these things to yourself, a lot of the time what your brain will do without you realizing is just focus on the instructional aspect of that self-talk. So it will just focus on miss or screw up. And that will obviously cause more panic, nervousness, anxiety, or just result in extra tension filling your body. So instead, what you have to do is focus on desired outcome self-talk. So you have to remove the don'ts and the attention being given to the outcome that you're trying to avoid, and instead only allow your brain to focus on the positives and the outcomes you're trying to achieve. So you'd want to replace "don't let him get past me" with "block him off," or "don't miss" with "caress it to the cup." Doing this keeps your brain focused on the task at hand and also gives it a clear instruction to follow. They say where the mind goes, the body will follow. So if you fill your mind with self-talk statements about a certain objective you have, it's going to do all it can to help you fulfill that objective. And lastly, perhaps the best but most overlooked technique is mindfulness. This is something all athletes should use if they want complete mental clarity and to stop the cycle of overthinking. All mindfulness is the practice of purposely bringing attention to the present moment. And most people achieve this through meditation and breathing exercises. But you honestly don't have to become a Buddhist monk to experience the benefits. Even just 5 minutes a day can help you start building the mental muscle of controlling your mind when it matters most. The likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Novak Djokovic, and LeBron James all swear by practicing mindfulness as a key habit that has helped them learn to deal with high pressure moments. Ronaldo's deep breaths prior to taking a penalty or free kick, that's not just for show. That's an example of microdoses of mindfulness to center him and clear the mind before striking the ball. Studies show that regular mindfulness practice can increase the ability of athletes to heighten their focus, be able to push out distractions, manage stress and anxiety better, and also enhance their decision making. Obviously, these are all things that if you develop, you're in a much better position to put in peak performances. So to start building this habit, you just need to do 5 simple things. Firstly, just find a quiet space where you won't be distracted. This could be your bedroom, or if you're training, go to the toilets or a corner of the changing rooms. Secondly, you just want to make yourself comfortable. You don't have to sit with your legs crossed like you see a lot of people who practice mindfulness. Just sit down on a chair or sit up on your bed. Try to have your back straight but a little bit relaxed, and just let your arms fall onto your lap. Thirdly, set a timer for 5 minutes and let your eyes close. And then after that, just devote all your focus to your breath. Inhale and exhale however feels natural, but try to take full breaths and just keep that focus on your breath with every breath in and every breath out. Keep your focus on how your chest is rising or falling, or where you feel the breath going in terms of filling your lungs and then passing back out through your mouth. And then lastly, as random thoughts pop into your mind, which they will, just accept them, acknowledge them, but then bring your focus back to your breath, just focusing on your inhalation and exhalation. And try to do that for the whole 5 minutes. And it's as simple as that. And as you get more into the habit of it, just try to add on an extra 1 or 2 minutes. I personally find a 10 to 15 minute session of this is more than sufficient. I know it seems like effort, but just like working out your body, working out your mind is not meant to be easy. So just be patient. The more you practice this, the more you'll find it easier to be able to break that cycle of overthinking. To learn more about this great practice, check out this next video here on Novak Djokovic's mental strength.